welcome to today's episode of Authentic Achievements, where it's my very great honor to be joined by the fabulous Eric Pfeiffer. Eric, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so looking forward to this conversation, and I know it was very easy for us to get just stuck into chatting as we were before the show. But before we do that, let me share with those watching and listening a little bit more about you. So Eric is the founder and CEO of MPWR Coaching. He's been in the leadership development space for over 15 years, having helped build a multi-million-dollar coaching business and trained over 150 coaches worldwide. He founded MPWR Coaching in 2019 to expand his efforts to unlock leaders' potential so they can grow their organizations and teams in new, never imagined ways. He's known for creating one of the only leadership operating systems available today, which empowers the true engine of any business, its people. And he's published 2 life-transforming books, Leadership Gravitas and Transform Your Trajectory, each introducing simple tools that give leaders a competitive advantage in any context. Eric speaks and leads out of the overflow of his own journey, and he's a fierce practitioner of what he teaches and is committed to becoming a better version of himself daily. I love that. I mean, wow, what a journey, Eric. Can you tell us more about that? Can you bring that more to life? I mean, there's so much in there that I would love to understand more.
Yeah, are you speaking about the last line there or the whole thing?
The whole thing, to be fair. But I did love the last bit. Yeah, I'm a big believer. It really resonated with me. I say to my little girl, our only goal in life is to be a better version of ourselves today than we were yesterday.
Yes.
We shouldn't do the compare outside. We should do the compare inside. How do I be the best me? So that bit really resonated. But the whole thing is just such an interesting journey.
Yeah, well, I'll start with that. And your listeners are going to hear your little friend down there. I love it. I love it. Don't worry about it.
It's called Authentic Achievements, isn't it? So my mum's dog is currently crying because she's left.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kim, what's fun about that is that so often on these podcasts, everything is so polished and everybody has everything so dialed in, which is fantastic, and there's space for that. But I think most of the people that are listening are often wondering, do they have it all put together? Have they figured it all out? Do they never have to struggle? I mean, the fact that you're sitting for your mom's dog with your dog, it's like, if you had a baby in another arm, that'd be perfect.
Oh, I know. Needy dog has now decided he wants to.
I get it. Yeah, so I think going back to my earlier years in my 20s, probably all the way up to my early 30s, like most young people, I had a picture of who I wanted to be, what I wanted to accomplish. And so you set off running after those images, those dreams of who you want to be. And I think it was so easy for me to get wrapped up in the destination, the results, what I wanted to achieve. And didn't develop an appreciation for the process and understand that the journey to becoming who I want to be, to achieving what I want to achieve, actually takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot more time than we realize. And I'm fortunate enough to have had a mentor early on in those years who taught me the value of, Eric, the best you can do every day is become a better version than you were yesterday. And in that journey, developing a love and appreciation for the process of small incremental changes that over time actually lead to significant changes. And so that's a lot of what I do with my clients. You know, so many clients, they bring me in or my organization in and they want quick, fast change. They want us to, transform everything in a week or two or in a few short, intense sessions. And I have to remind them, hey, listen, we can make significant changes, but it's going to require small incremental changes over a lengthy period of time to get those. And the benefit is those small incremental changes also lead to sustainable change, because I've seen a lot of radical overnight shifts in organizations and teams in different businesses that very quickly dissipate or return back to the way they were before. And so much of who we are as a coaching business, even our methodology, people say, we can't work with you for an hour a week, even via Zoom, over a year or two. And I say, well, then you don't want the change that you're looking for, because that's what's required. And anybody who sells you something else, a quick 6-week fix, I can tell you is not going to help you achieve the sustainable transformation that you're looking for.
I love that. It's so true. Those transformations really are in what we consistently do, and actually they're very often not the very exciting, here's the problem.
No, almost never.
It is in the systematic improvements across processes and across. I was talking to a business owner the other day, and I said, like, your problems show up in your financials, but they manifest in your people. Yes. So the cause of them will always be somewhere in the people, either, and that's not because people are trying to get it wrong. It might be that they've not got clarity on what's expected, or that they've not been given permission to be part of the solution. So they just wait, therefore, to be told what they need to do. Yeah. So when you want to affect change that is going to be sustainable and scalable, then actually you've got to do the hard work, haven't you? You've got to do the consistency, and those quick wins are, unfortunately, like you say, they don't sustain, and therefore people end up spending a fortune transforming the things, yes, which takes them as long and costs them significantly more money, not to mention the fatigue that it puts, yes, on an organization and its people. And then actually just making that commitment to taking those steps, like you say, and going, actually, I'm going to have to put the time in. I'm going to have to choose to make this important.
Yes.
If I actually want to affect the change that I'm saying is important.
And it's well, two things. One, I'm going to steal that phrase you used was really, really good, which is the problems that show up in your finances will manifest in your people. Because you and I talked before that people are the engine of your business. If something's going wrong on paper in your spreadsheets, it's probably to do with your people. But the other thing I love is that you said is, I think a lot of the organizations that I step into working with they've experienced significant change fatigue.
Yeah.
They've hired lots of consultants and they've brought in people from around the world to motivate and to hopefully inspire their troops to make significant changes. But because they don't know how to do the real work, those incremental changes over time, what happens is I think a lot of leaders develop change fatigue.
Yeah.
And they stop believing that it's possible and ultimately resign to, this is the way it's always going to be. I guess I'll just have to put up with it, which is really sad because it doesn't have to be that way. And that's always the hope that I bring to leaders and organizations. I say, if you give this enough time, this process, I promise you, full money back guarantee that you will experience the changes you're looking for and more than you could have imagined.
It's so true. Sorry, now the dog's decided he wants to try and break away. Teddy, honestly, it's a good job the show's called Authentic, isn't it? Because this life as it goes on. But no, what I love about that is that whole part of getting people to buy in and to acknowledge that actually the people really are the most important asset that we've got, aren't they? And if we get that bit right, we get that belief piece, but when they have invested time, money, effort, resource into these do it quick schemes, it can then be such a big challenge for them, can't it? Because I don't know if you find the same thing, but it's almost like, well, what makes you different? Why is it you're standing here in front of me telling me the same thing that all these people that said they could do it in 3 minutes can do? Why should I trust you now versus them and what they were saying?
That's right.
So how do you overcome that with them?
Yeah, well, that's a big question. I think I'll share a few different things. Number one, we're big believers that you have to practice a lot of empathy before you can show off your authority. So in the beginning, when we're first working with an organization, we go through some different exercises that gives them an opportunity to tell us what's working and what's not working. And in so doing, we're requiring that they share the pain points. And what they're hoping is that we're going to give them some immediate quick fixes or solutions. And instead, we appreciate the pain points. And what we do is we begin to help them little by little understand that the pain points they're feeling, think of like a tree. If you had a cross section of a tree, you had the land, and what we see above ground is the tree.
Yeah.
But below ground, there is so much happening. There's the whole root system. And very often leaders, and this is totally understandable, are so busy dealing with the day-to-day and all of the what we call symptomatic issues.
Yeah.
All of the presenting pain points, but don't always have the tools or the time to identify what's going on beneath the surface. In other words, what's going on in our culture, what's going on in our people that is actually creating these pain points. And if we can't identify what's going on in the root system, in the systemic level of the organization that's causing these pain points, then we'll constantly address the symptoms, but never address the root cause. That's why when we go to a doctor and we present all of our pain points, what they're actually doing is using their years of medical study to try and pinpoint where is this actually going on inside of your body, which we don't understand. When we help those leaders begin to understand the connection between the symptomatic issues and the systemic issues, it's like all of a sudden a light bulb goes on and they suddenly recognize, oh, that's why all of the attempts we've made to change dynamics in our organization at any level have not proven successful, because we've just been cutting off branches and trying to prune the tree, but we've not been dealing with the root system that's actually producing all of these issues. And once they see that connection, I think it gives them a renewed hope that change is possible. And then our process of coaching, we've developed what we call a leadership operating system, which is a simple 8 tools in a toolkit that help leaders, that give them the skill set to not only identify the systemic issues that are going on at any part in their organization, but also the practical skills and handles and how they can begin to make the changes to rectify or remedy those pain points.
I love that. I love your statement. You've got to show empathy before you can show authority, because that's very often where people go wrong, isn't it? They stump straight in there, authority everywhere, and then wonder why people don't get brought into the process. And then it's so true. Very often we're busy addressing symptoms all over the place, but all that does is make them pop out somewhere else. It's just going to be somewhere else until you almost peel all of that back to the roots and say, okay, but where does that go? If you're not putting if you keep putting a sticky plaster on, eventually you can't tell whether the arm's still attached because there's that many plasters that people are having to pull underneath. But the other bit that I love is that leadership operating system, that giving them the tools and the proven methodology to break down the problem. Because I think that's part of certainly what I see with my clients is sometimes people can't move forward because they can't see the whole staircase. And as Morgan said, you don't need to see the whole staircase, you need to see the next step. So, but often that's the bit they can't see, is what steps should I take? What is, even if it's seemingly insignificant, every step we take moves us forward, doesn't it? And helps to better see. So I think that's such a unique additional offering, which is leaving them not only with knowing what the problem is, but with the actual skills, infrastructure, proven methodologies to solve that problem. Because I think you've found, Eric, the same thing. Very often what people have done is come in and told them what the problem is. It's almost like coming in and going, baby's ugly, and then leaving them with it. It's like because people's business is their baby. It's like, they don't want it to be criticized, but equally don't leave them with something that they can't resolve. So for me, what made you kind of really start to hone that into that operating system?
I had the very fortunate opportunity to study under a former mentor for almost 13 years. I was in my late 20s, like many people, trying to figure out what industry, my career path. And I had at that point been exposed to a variety of consultants, coaches who had been brought in by the organization I was working with to train us. I was on the young executive track, and so I was getting a lot of leadership training. And what I quickly realized was that there were so many good ideas, but there was a massive gap between what I call the academic or good idea version of leadership coaching and the boots on the ground, practical, how do I do this, implement this, integrate it approach. And so under this former mentor, he introduced me to this concept of people need simple visual tools to help them translate these incredible principles and truths of life, humanity, leadership, everything from sociology to psychology, all the best stuff that we've learned. How do we actually translate that into practical handles? And so he had developed some of these visual tools, and I saw such incredible traction, movement, transformation in myself, first and foremost, as a leader, as a human being, as a husband, as a father, across every area of my life. And then I saw that in the clients that we were working with. And so I after studying under him for so many years, and that coaching business was in a particular vertical, a particular kind of niche. And I thought to myself, gosh, more people need something like this. And so about 7 or 8, maybe 9, almost 10 years ago, gosh, time flies. I decided, okay, I want to create my own leadership operating system, borrowing from the genius of so many amazing thought leaders, mentors, and began the process of constructing what I now call a leadership operating system. And the reason I use that metaphor is because if you think of like a smartphone device, and we're enamored with these devices because there's all these apps the millions that we can choose from, and each app represents like a solution to a very particular problem. And I think my experience of so much of the leadership literature and training that I was experiencing in those early years felt more like apps. If I got this app, then I could solve this problem. If I got this app, I could solve this problem. And so I was constantly cycling through apps, trying them to see which ones worked, which ones were beneficial. But every time you ran into a new kind of problem, guess what? You needed to go out and look for a new app. And that was so frustrating for me. And this dawned on me at probably at some point in my early to mid 30s. It dawned on me that no matter how many apps I would accumulate, I knew that there was actually something deeper, more fundamentally askew within me. And this is the time where smartphones were blowing up, Apple, the iPhone. I read lots of articles. And so this metaphor began to illuminate itself to me. And I realized the real genius in these devices is not the apps, but the operating system. The operating system is a governing set of software that basically its responsibility is to act like the parental controls over all of the other apps that are trying to solve problems. It's the meta software. And it does everything from ensuring that the apps are running right, that you're using the right apps in the right ways, that you're using your memory correctly, that there's security in place. All of these things, all of a sudden it dawned on me, I thought, you know what? I have an operating system. I've probably been developing an operating system since I came into the world. I inherited some of that from my parents. I adopted from teachers, coaches, mentors over the years. But I have a fundamental operating system. In other words, a way that I view myself and the world around me, the way that I understand who I am as a human being, and the way that I understand other people. And some of that operating system works and allows me to address life situations in a way that is beneficial for all parties involved. Some of that operating system is actually dysfunctional. Paradigms, perspectives, ways of thinking. People call these mindsets that lead to behavioral patterns that were unhelpful. whether they were rooted in fear, insecurity, hostility, unforgiveness, whatever the case is. And I think most people, when I share this metaphor, they go, oh, I think I know what you're talking about, because no matter how many times I read that book and I tried to implement that app, it didn't work. And so what happens is people constantly consume leadership apps and then wonder why they're not experiencing greater success in their life or leadership. And here's what I tell them. It's likely that the app isn't broken. It's that your operating system is fundamentally broken. And so if we can upgrade your operating system and train you to think and operate in a way that is in greater alignment with who you actually want to be and how you want to operate, then guess what? You'll be able to make far greater use of all of the incredible leadership insights that you've been accumulating over the years. So all that to say, I set out, created really from what I learned in my own journey, borrowing from the smartest people out there, because I didn't create anything from scratch, and created this operating system, these 8 fundamental tools that people can learn and integrate into their life that literally upgrades. It only affirms the aspects of how they're operating that are already helpful. So we're not talking about a full sale change, but it also upgrades those areas that are dysfunctional, unhelpful, so that more of the way they operate minute by minute, day by day, week by week, allows them to bring the better version of themselves to any situation, to identify and solve problems far more efficiently and effectively than they could before, and to be able to achieve far greater things because their operating system is now set up to help them do that. Where before, most people don't realize they are more likely undermining their own success than anybody else is affecting them, right? Most people want to blame their boss, their colleagues, their spouse, their kids, the government, politics, economics for why life isn't turning out better for them. And I have to remind people, you know what? Those are all real factors, but I can almost guarantee you that the one person that is undermining your success more than anyone else is you. And once somebody recognizes that and is willing to make the changes and upgrade their operating system across the board, unequivocally, it's unbelievable the transformation that people experience. And not just in business, but this operating system allows them to operate far more effectively and successfully across every domain of their life. And which is why when people ask me, what's your great mission? I say to put this operating system into the hands of as many people as humanly possible. Now, I primarily work with high-level executives, but I really believe, Kim, that if this is the operating system I wish I had access to when I was in my latter years of high school, in college, anybody I run into, I'm like, I just want to give you this operating system because it will almost instantaneously begin to turn your trajectory and point you in the direction that you actually want to go in. That was a long-winded answer. Sorry.
And so I was smiling because I literally had a similar conversation probably about 2 months ago, where it suddenly dawned on me, clearly late, that we know that our personality and what we believe about ourselves, we create at the age of 7, we enforce at the age of 14, and we embed at the age of 21. And I'm 51 this year. So I was like, would I allow my phone or my laptop to run on an operating system that hadn't been updated for 30 years? And imagine how many bugs there are in that 30 years of that operating system. And so you've got to be able to go back and do the upgrade, do the bug fixes. And that's why I love when you were talking about it, saying not everything's broken. And some bits of it will be working, but they might be being misdirected.
That's right.
We learned something now that we didn't know before, and therefore with better information, we can make that faster, slicker, smoother. I said, we wouldn't dream of allowing our phone to go when it flashes up and says an update available. We're like little pigeons, aren't we? So, well, look, let's do that right now. And then we don't take the same care and attention with ourselves.
Yes.
And like you say, very often when you've done that work, when somebody's helped you to know how to go and find the bugs, fix the bugs, but also find the bits that are your genius, find the bits that are your shining light so that you can turn the volume upon them, then the transformation isn't just in the arena you thought it was going to be. It is across the board, isn't it? Because it's now you being your best version.
That's right. And I love that because it plays well in the metaphor, because if you pick up any two people's smartphone devices, they're totally different apps. It reflects different interests, different passions, different hobbies, different cultures. And yet it's the same operating system that runs them all, which is interesting because I tell people up to this date, after I don't know how many years, over a decade of developing this operating system, I've never worked with a leader from any background. Doesn't matter if it's cultural, racial, political, social, economic, doesn't matter. Every leader I've ever worked with says, oh, this is when they are introduced to the operating system, they say, I ask them, if at any point you run into an aspect of this operating system that does not reflect who you want to be, how you want to operate, you let me know. Never had anybody say, oh no, that's not the kind of person or leader I want to be. Which just goes to show you that the operating system, let's just take the iOS, right? The iPhone. It is the same on every single phone across the world. And yet every single person who's using it is able to diversify the application of that operating system based on the apps and the use of the phone. And that's the genius of the leadership operating system. I tell people, I did not create the genius of it. I just borrowed from all of these amazing people in different fields and realized, oh, if I could just consolidate these, like what would that do? And for myself, it was so radically transformative. For my clients, it's so radically transformative. And so I just tell people, I said, because every business, like you said, always thinks they're special, they're different. You don't understand us. You've never worked in our industry before. And I always have to remind them, are you a human being? Yes, of course. Okay, then this will work for you.
I love that, because we very often we do make it difficult, and actually it does always come back to people. The issue is always somewhere in the people, in a misunderstanding, misinformation, miscommunication. But once we fix those parts, then actually we can all be part of the solution. And I love that whole thinking about our operating system, and actually being, I guess for me, it's being intentional with it.
Yeah.
It's looking at it and saying, actually, well, we've got an operating system, whether we admit it or not, we've got one. So maybe we should go and look at it. And we are all very unique, and our phones can be a great example of that. Even the way we have our icons is a fascinating indicator of how we sort through information. Some people put them in folders, some people have them all individual. It can tell you so much, can't it, about how people digest information, how they learn, and how they make it implementable. I remember reading, I can't remember where I read it, somewhere that we use only 10% of our brain capacity, only 10%. And imagine if we could just use 1% more, the impact that we'd have. But some of that is in how we use it, and therefore those operating system upgrades. And for me, when it dawned on me with that, and I love it as an analogy, is it all suddenly made sense. All the things I've learned over the 30 odd years that I've been in business, going, oh, okay, that's the difference. And I guess for me, it's that commonality of language. Your operating system is creating a language that each of the apps can understand what it's got to do. And that really, in my experience, has always been the secret sauce to a good leader, their ability to create a common language.
That's right.
Where people actually, they know what's going on. Yeah. They've not got to, my little girl's learning to read, and everything's about decoding words. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what we spend our entire life doing, decoding what's going on.
That's right.
And through things like working with you in that operating system, you're creating that commonality.
That's right.
And therefore that familiarity, which I guess helps people gain clarity, which then gives them confidence, which is why you see such a significant impact, not just in the area they thought they were addressing this issue at work, but to your point and to your lived experience, it alters who you are and how you show up in all aspects. Because it used to make me smile when they said, like, leave your problems at the door, and it's like, well, that's never going to work, is it? Because our emotional brain responds 24 times faster than our thinking brain. So funny enough, by the time we think I should have left that at the door, I've already thought about it. And actually, we bring our whole selves wherever we go. It's how do we help learn the methodology and the strategies to ensure we're bringing our best self as we go. And it sounds like that's a whole host of what you're doing. So what is it that you would expect your clients to see as a result of working with you?
Oh, gosh. First of all, what you just shared, I could riff on everything you just shared for the next hour. It's so good. We expect that our clients will, to use your language, will, with the toolkit or with this operating system, will develop a far greater measure of clarity around what's going on internally for them, which is now seeping out externally. We tell our leaders, whatever you cultivate internally is what you're going to project externally, period, regardless of whether you want to or not. And our attitudes and behaviors always betray what we think our motivations are. And so first and foremost, the operating system teaches people the skills of self-awareness and self-leadership. How do we, under all of the pressure, we're every day triggered multiple times. Sometimes we get hijacked. The amygdala fires, we threatened, we think we're in danger, we start overreacting, we yell, we become passive aggressive, maybe we withdraw, whatever the case is. First and foremost, we expect that our clients will begin to develop a much clearer view of themselves, a much more sober understanding, not only of what's happening internally, but how they're impacting their environment.
Yeah.
Which is very important, because if you ask any individual, how do you think you impact your environment? And then you go ask the closest people to them, usually two very different answers. And then once they understand the importance of what people would refer to as self-regulation, I refer to as self-leadership. Then what they discover is, the more that I practice self-leadership, I'm able to operate with greater composure, which leads to clarity, which leads to confidence. Now, when I engage with the people in the world around me, I'm no longer entering into that space with all of the distorted lenses of all the thoughts and emotions that have been spinning internally. So I'm able to see now and practice others' awareness. I can see other people more clearly, more empathetically, more compassionately, more soberly, which then allows them to lead those people more effectively. So we've developed a 4-quadrant tool. The first key tool that we train leaders in around emotional intelligence is to be able to lead others effectively. We first have to be able to lead ourselves effectively. And because leaders define culture, we're the ones who shape culture by the prevailing attitudes and behaviors that we employ. We can then take responsibility for the fact that if we want to shift that culture, we have to go first. And so leaders who start to engage in the operating system suddenly realize, number one, where before they often felt victimized and blamed their team or the board or the clients and customers or whatever, social regulations for their problems, suddenly realize, no, I actually have a lot more authority and power in this situation than I realized before. And then secondly, they are far more likely to bring the better version of themselves, the sober, clear-minded, non-reactive version of themselves to the situation. And so what they begin to discover very quickly is how much through the years they have reacted to situations rather than engaged or have been proactive in those situations. How often they've responded out of hijacked emotions and lack of mental clarity that has just further perpetuated the problem. and compounded those dynamics. And then we expect that with that growing clarity and confidence, they will feel far more, what's probably the best way to say it, they will feel far more competent to be able to address and engage their team, whatever strategies and objectives they're trying to achieve, but in a way that is far more integrated and peaceful internally. So I tell people, the higher you go in leadership, the more stress you take on, the more pressure you take on. So the question is, how do we learn to operate and bring the better version of ourselves under increasing pressure? That's the big challenge. And so, after maybe 3 to 6 months of working with us, most of our clients will say, this is the competitive advantage I or we were looking for.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, my preference is to work with teams and organizations because like let's go back to the operating system metaphor. In any organization, you do not allow everybody in your business to run a different operating system.
Yeah.
Computers can't run the same apps. They can't communicate well and interface. And so in the same way, as a leader begins to experience this newfound clarity, freedom, composure, now if there are more people on this journey, now everybody's playing from the same playbook. Now everybody's operating in a similar way. And again, it does not deny personality, gifts, talents, unique skills, any of that. All it does is allow them to interface far more effectively. And as a result, communication, collaboration, and whatever they're trying to achieve increases dramatically.
I love that. I think it's that whole, you're giving everybody in the team the permission to be part of the solution and to know that their part that they play. And I think, for me, the bit that sprang to mind with this, I love a quote. And there was a great one for me, which I think sums up what you're asking people to do. And that is move from being a victim of their circumstance to a product of their choices.
Ooh, I'm borrowing that too. That's good.
I say that all the time. I'm not a victim of my circumstance. I'm a product of my choice. Because in every situation, there's been a choice. There might not always have been the most palatable of choices, but there has been a choice. There's been an opportunity for me to do one or another thing. And as I say to my little girl all of the time, the beauty of choice is if you make one that doesn't serve you, you can make a new one.
That's right.
So it all of a sudden becomes much more you're much more in control, and we are all the author of our own life.
Yes.
Sometimes we don't own the pen. Sometimes I think we have to take that bit back. Stop blaming all these other people that are outside. Yes. Actually, you're the author of it. So take the pen and work with it. And I love that actually what you're doing is giving them then those solutions, those strategies for how they actually progress and move forward. I always end with, and I could chat to you all day, but I'm really conscious of your time. But I always end with, what would you like to have, what advice would you give your younger self? But I think you've already shared with us, which is getting this earlier, knowing what you knew now earlier, and the impacts that could have. And you can see why this is a passion project, because you know for yourself and from all of the people that you've helped just how transformational it is when you're willing to go and do the work to upgrade that operating.
And I'll tell you, Kim, the one of the best affirmations I ever get from my clients is not actually from my clients. It's from spouses, significant others, adult children, that when I'm working with clients over a period of time, I often spend time over meals. Sometimes I stay in their homes because we develop a great relationship. And, or you go to an event and sometimes some of the family's there, and and sometimes it's colleagues, sometimes it's a board member who will pull me aside and say, whatever you're doing with this individual or this team, it is working, because they are so much more enjoyable to work with, to be around. They are a far better leader today. That's the affirmation, because obviously the clients are in it, they're experiencing it. And so, there's lots of encouragement that comes from that. But it's when the environment around them recognizes that they are literally transforming for the better, and not just for their best interest, but for everybody else's best interest. That is for me, that's what allows me to go to sleep at night.
Oh, I love that, because I think in every day, that's what we're trying to do, isn't it? Is to add value, is to, I used to say, I've been in that many meetings over the years that were a total waste of makeup, that I was like, I just don't want anybody ever to say that about working with me. So I thought, God, that was just a waste of time. I wish I'd not done that. And so when you can see that you've affected that change, that's visible to everybody else around, and that is for the positive good, to your point, that is what helps us sleep at night, and what helps us go, today was a good day. Today was a good day. Eric, it's been such a delight to chat to you. I've got so many more things I'd like to
Likewise.
chat to you about, and I'm sure we can continue the conversation. But before we go, how can people get in touch with you, and how do they get to work with you and learn more?
Yeah, so they can go to the simplest ways, just to go to our website. That's kind of the central place where people can connect with us and all of our resources, and find out where podcasts I'm on and the books and everything else. We put it all through our website. It's MPWRcoaching.com, which, by the way, is the word empower without the vowels.
Yeah.
That's due to one of my younger colleagues who thought that would be clever. But most people think it's a radio station now. And so they can go there. And the most important thing, Kim, is we offer a free coaching call through our website. And we tell people, you don't even have to know what you want to ask or talk about. We'll ask you questions. We just, and we're not even necessarily looking to sell our products. We just so badly want to create space for people who are trying to grow as leaders, to have a safe space to process their struggles, their challenges. And our hope is just to connect them to resources that will literally help them move the needle in that area.
I love that, because that very often, back to what we said earlier in this conversation, sometimes it's people can't move forward because they can't see the next step.
That's
and
right.
Therefore, I highly recommend that people take you up on that opportunity.
And they're always surprised when I show up on the call. They think one of my team members, and my team is amazing, and they will answer some of those coaching calls, but people are surprised, like, wait, you're on this call? I'm like, yeah, I love this. I tell people I would get a full-time job, and I have in the past, just for the privilege of doing what I get to do.
Yeah, I think we're kindred spirits. Yes, I would say, just the opportunity to help people see the step, and take the empowerment that gives them to be back in control. That's right. There's nothing else like it, is there? There's nothing else in life like it. Like you, I often pinch myself for the privilege of being able to help people to kind of see those steps that are in front of them. Eric, it has been an absolute delight. All of the information on how to get in touch with you, how to links to your website and everything will be in the show notes below. So for anybody who's watching and wanting to grab that call, it will be in the notes below. So go and check that out. And we'd love for you, if you've spoken to Eric, to share with us the impact it's had, because once we do have that connection, once we regain that connection to ourselves, what we want to be, and that intentionality, the impact is just indescribable. Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.
And for everybody listening and watching, I hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as I have. And until next time, take care.